Ripple XRP. So today I'm going to be talking about the $34 trillion record that we have now seen with the US debt, and this is an emergency warning because it is going to be affecting all American citizens now and also in the potential future. I also have some news regarding the founder of matrixport and the connections that they have towards Bitcoin. In addition to this, we will be talking about the SEC and how they may not be able to actually reject the ETF approvals, and of course the price action for XRP coin today. So all I ask from you are two things, which is to smash that like button and to subscribe to the channel as well. And so of course the first bit of big news that we have is coming from the fact that the total US debt has now hit $34 trillion, and the reason as to why this is pretty big is because it has happened for the first time in history. Of course, we saw the US debt actually increase with the fact that we had the pandemic, and it increased by quite a lot, and it's now putting the US debt up by 100% since 2014. And also the debt has increased by in terms of the amount of trillions that it has accelerated between the years as well, and it has jumped quite significantly. Now, since the debt ceiling crisis ended in June 2023, the total US debt is up nearly $3 trillion. Now, why is this bad news for us? Well, we all know that when it comes to higher debt, it means that we could potentially see more pressure on inflation. So of course, with the Federal Reserve, we didn't see any sort of increase in the interest rates back in November or December. However, I believe that 2024 is going to definitely be a big year because we may just see an increase in those interest rates, and that means that the US government spending is now more than $1.8 billion a day, and that is only to cover the interest payments alone. And of course, the government therefore has a deficit which it needs to cover, and the only way that the government will be able to reduce their borrowing is of course by raising the taxes, which is going to hit people's pockets, or of course by reducing the spending. But there are going to be certain services that they're not going to be reducing the spending, and military is going to be one of them that they definitely won't be making cutbacks on those services. So will the US government be able to repay the debt back? Because if we don't see that debt being repaid back, we could see the higher interest rates. Then it all leads into a snowball effect because it could in turn raise the cost of borrowing. Now, when it comes to the high interest rates, it's going to affect you as well because it's going to increase your mortgage rates, it's going to increase the credit card rates. We are already seeing a cost of living crisis and people are struggling, and so it will only be increasing more. But my question is, where are the buyers of the debt going to be coming from? And I do believe that this debt is kind of like the final nail in the coffin, to be honest with you, because we have already gone so far. You've already raked up $34 trillion, and I think they will only keep going until it is too late. And the reason as to why I think this is because I believe that the national debt that they're going to be raking in, and I think it's their goal, is to reach $50 trillion by 2030. So if we are already at $34 trillion in 2024, we've got another 6 years to go, and that's essentially going to be an extra $60 trillion that they're going to be putting on the total amount of the US debt, and it's essentially going to lead us into a path where there is no turning back. And also, if we take a look at what Janet Yellen has said regarding this, she is the US State Secretary of the Treasury. She essentially said that all of this debt was sustainable. So let's take a look at this.
When you're taking the debt from 32 to $50 trillion, are you concerned who's going to buy that debt? And also at what rate they'll expect to be compensated for buying riskier and riskier debt? Are you concerned about that?
Well, if the real net interest cost of the debt remains low relative to GDP, and we're on a sustainable fiscal.
Well, we're not on a sustainable path.
And so from that, you can see that she has clearly got her head in the clouds, saying that it is a sustainable path to be increasing that national debt in 2030 by another $16 trillion. And I think when it also comes to national debt, we have to be taken into the consideration of GDP, and essentially what the GDP to debt ratio is. I believe that does matter, because if the economy is booming and GDP rises, then it can somewhat be in line with the ever increasing debt. But of course, if GDP is not rising, however our debt is rising, our economy is essentially going to be wrecked, and we could be in the same situation as Japan are right now. And we also know that in the next few months we will be having the 2024 fiscal spending bills, and those decisions that need to be made in order to be approved. And of course, if there is no agreement, then we could potentially be seeing a government shutdown, which isn't good, but that will be one of the final outcomes if that were to happen. And I actually also want to show you this graph as well, which is from the Federal Reserve, and you can see over here the increase in the national debt and how it has has accelerated. So this is when we had the pandemic. Now back in 2019, it says over here that there was 14.9 trillion total in circulation, and you can see that 2019 would be around about here and just below this line. And then by January 2022, and so it's at this point over here, there was $21.6 trillion, meaning that the Federal Reserve printed more money only a few years, and that was increased by $7 trillion. And so we'll definitely have to see how it all plays out, but it is very concerning. So as we know, we had matrixport, which is a media company, and essentially they posted two pieces of opposing information or articles at the same time. One of the articles said that Bitcoin was going to hit $50,000 and that the ETFs were imminent, and that was on the 2nd of January. And then the next article said that there would be a potential delay in the ETFs by the SEC on January the 3rd, and it is comical to think that it was only one day apart between both of these articles. So what I want to actually show you is that the founder of matrixport, of this company, is Jihan Wu, and come to find out that he is actually the owner of Bitmain, which is the largest Bitcoin hardware manufacturer in the world. Why would he make a FUD article like this? Maybe he was tired of mining empty blocks. Maybe he shorted it Bitcoin before putting out the article. He has always been known as bad action on the space. So as you can see, we have the connection with him essentially being invested in the crypto world, and also for both of those articles to be coming out. Now Jihan has essentially posted a very long tweet in response to this, because it started to blow up all on X, and people were complaining about the fact that they posted these very two different articles. And because of the fact that we saw a mini flash crash, we saw the price of Bitcoin go from $45,000 to $42,000 in only one day, and other altcoins followed as well. So you can see over here, this is the excuse that he has come up with, and he said that the analysis operate independently, expressing their opinions without any influence or interference from management. Talking about the fact that they have analytical skills, and then he goes on to say here that the recent report was prepared for matrixport clients. However, it's widespread by the media, was not planned by matrixport, and is beyond our control. Maybe it's beyond your control at the fact that it became widespread and a lot of people knew about it, but it still is within your control yet to actually be putting information out there. And not only that, but you are also confusing your potential clients that you are saying you're giving information to, because one report said one thing and another report said the complete opposite. So even if you were preparing that information for your clients, it didn't even make sense for them. So anyway, it went viral and everybody saw it, that matrixport has essentially been safeguarding their clients, being mindful of risk and leverages. And he says over here that looking at Bitcoin's history and its future prospects, the current volatility and the potential approval uncertainty of a Bitcoin ETF in January 2024 are ultimately of no importance. And he says that in the long term, Bitcoin will always prevail. So as we know, guys, when it comes to this date of January the 10th, there was a lot of hype surrounding by it in the past, what is it, maybe 1 month and a half now, ever since we even started to acknowledge the fact that these big companies like BlackRock and Fidelity Investments and Franklin Templeton were all going to be filing for a spot Bitcoin ETF. That was one of the main catalysts of 2024, and we all thought that we could potentially be seeing a mini bull run. So the fact that he thinks that the spot Bitcoin ETFs won't essentially be affecting the price, I think is very naive to say, because we just know how much capital that will be flowing into the cryptocurrency market, and with the fact that more institutions are now buying up Bitcoin because of these ETFs. So anyway, that is his response that I thought I would show you guys. So before we have a look at the price action for today, I just want to show you this post that we have over here talking about the SEC and could they actually be denying the ETF approvals. Well, Charles says over here that if the SEC was going to deny, they would not be dealing with the 19B for approval forms, which grants the issue of a security onto the exchanges for trade. The SEC knows they face a loss against BlackRock in the DC court if they do deny. Now, I actually had a look into these 19B form approvals, and I have read somewhere that essentially what it means is that it does record a rule change for the SEC. However, the SEC can still reject the filing if any of the required information is excluded from the final filing. And so I do believe that there is a possibility that they could potentially reject it, but maybe it does mean that if they did exclude any information and they were able to recorrect it and do another filing, that they would then be able to approve later on down the line. That is what I'm currently thinking. And so maybe we might see a rejection of 1 or 2 ETFs if that is the case. But if it isn't the case, then there should be the go ahead of the SEC approving the ETFs. Now let's take a look at the price action for XRP coin today. We are up by 2.88% on the 1-day chart as we were able to bounce back from yesterday's dip. We are currently trading at 0.5861. Our volume is down by 43.15%, and we are trading at $1.7 billion. So the low for the day that we were at was 0.573. Now, if we have a look at the 7-day chart, obviously we had that massive tank off over over here, and we are down by 6.8%, but you can see that we are coming back ever so nicely. Now the high that we went to for the day was 0.5873. Now I definitely think that XRP coin should be able to get back to 60 cents comfortably in the next few days, of course, if we don't see any more negative news. Yesterday was pretty much an outlier because of everything that we saw, and when it came to the fact that Bitcoin's price fell. On the 1 month chart, we are down by 4.87%, but we were doing pretty good, right? We were pretty much sitting at that 60 to 62 cent range. So let's see if we can get back to that 60 cents again. Guys, if you want daily Ripple XRP coin news, subscribe to the channel and like the video as well.